Welcome to Yell, Fight, Sooie, college football from three friendly-ish rivals.
Welcome to this week's edition of Yell, Fight, Sooie. One of us, it should be Yell, Fight, Cry. This week is what we really should call it, but we're going to still call this Yell, Fight, Sooie. We have of the representatives of the Yellers. Hey, old Yeller. Hey, Andy Tom Chesson. How are you today?
I am doing as well as can be expected after a hard-fought contest this past Saturday.
Yeah, it was really tough. Yeah, it was awesome. We'll get into that in a minute. Fighting as always, and actually fighting all the way up to Kansas and Jayhawking the Jayhawks back to the Jayhawk land. James Christopher is with us.
Good morning.
Good week to be a Texas Longhorn fan last week. Yes, sir.
It's currently 7:47 in Austin, Texas, and OU still sucks.
And as you will find out throughout the show, yes, 7:47 a.m. is what Jim meant, and you'll get more time and temperature readings with the OU vacuum scale. Also,
if we can get a bigger budget, we'll start doing traffic too.
It's the most reliable weather report you're going to get this weekend.
I kind of like it though. If we had a helicopter, it'd be like, yeah, I'm over the stadium right now, and yes, it's 7 a.m. and yes, they still suck. And I think it'd be pretty cool that way. Guys, look, last week we are almost halfway through the football season. Do you guys realize that? We blinked.
Yeah.
This is week 6.
It's weird because the football season's going fast, yet this baseball season won't end. I don't know what's going on. It's just
well, you're winning on both ends, so
yeah.
I'll gladly trade spots with you right now. But no, we're 5 games in. We've just ended September. Does this seem like it's been a quicker football year than anything yet so far?
I mean, I think it's just age, Scott. When you're a kid, 12 weeks takes a really long time. When you're a man of a certain age, 12 weeks takes, I don't know, 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, part of my curiosity, though, guys, is we've had a lot of new stories that show up this year, right? I mean, it hasn't been the Alabama, the USC, the Ohio State. It's not been the same teams that we're talking about, right? We've got new players on the field this year.
I do think that's part of it. I think, again, weirdly enough to mirror the baseball season, it's not dissimilar, right? Like there are teams that haven't always been on everybody's radar or haven't been on everybody's radar for a while that are kind of, at least at this point, because while it is 5 weeks in, we're only 2 games into conference play, so who knows? But at least this point really are feel like they're taking some steps forward.
Yeah, Jim makes a really good point, Andy. It's that time of year where teams that have been undefeated start falling off, like Kansas did last week with Texas. We've got the same thing coming up this week. Georgia and Kentucky, both 5-0, both ranked. One of them's gonna drop off. Who've been the teams that have surprised you so far, Andy?
You talk about teams that we don't talk about a lot, and I look at the top 10 right now, and it is the teams that you talk about a lot, with a couple of exceptions. I think we all predicted Texas to do well. I don't know that we all predicted them to be 5-0 and rank 3rd in the country, receiving first place votes at this point of the season, except for possibly Jim. Congratulations. The other big surprise out of that group is probably Florida State for me. And I think that might be a little bit of fool's gold. And then you add the Pac-12, 10, 16, 3, 2, whatever they are, having 3 teams in the top 10 right now. They're all undefeated. Now, they're going to cannibalize themselves a little bit starting pretty quickly. But that's been a great start for a dying league, which brings in a national It's difficult to be on the West Coast, as we've always talked about, because the games start at midnight Eastern time, basically. But you've got 3 teams that are playing really, really well, and they're not Oregon State and Washington State, although those teams are playing well too. It's their name brands, and their name brands are going to have to carry them through this year, because not one of those 3 will be in the Pac-12 this time next year.
Yeah, if you would have been a betting person and said, okay, Washington State will enter October undefeated, I don't think anybody would have. I don't think anybody would have taken that bet. No, it just seems to me like the Colorado noise is happening. One story, Rutgers and what Greg Schiano is starting to turn around up there. There's a lot of good stories around the land, and that's kind of why to me it's felt like things have gone early. I don't think it's just because I'm old. Andy,
I think it's kind of neat that Greg Schiano is still there. Like, I like the idea that they have let him rebuild the program, which will essentially be his second rebuild. And you don't see that very often in the sport, and I really like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really interesting, and it's kind of something that's going really unnoticed. What I mean, he's just very quietly gone 4-1 in Piscataway or wherever they're at in New Jersey, and I don't think anyone had that planned for a team like Rutgers, but who knows? Let's bring it back close to home. Because I don't want to get too far away. Although I'm delaying one thing, we'll get to that in a little bit. Jim, Texas was dominant against Kansas, yeah, especially in the second half, pulled away. Any surprises? Anything you saw in that game that made you go, I didn't think that would happen?
No, not necessarily. What I wish is, I mean, obviously, Texas knocked the starting quarterback out, and that changed things. I actually would have liked to have seen the defense continue to perform against a quarterback that athletic, just to sort of get a measuring stick. I think they did a really good job of not looking past OU looking past them to OU. That can happen. Also, Texas has a habit of getting into a rut where if teams sort of beat them or play well, they kind of let that happen for a while before they, like K-State had to, for some reason, could beat them no matter what the situation was. So I was happy to see a nice dominant road win. And all of a sudden, I've got Bill Parcells ringing in the back of my head, hoping they're not eating any cheese as they get ready to head up to the state fair.
Andy, what were your thoughts about? I mean, look, Kansas has given Texas some problems in years past. They didn't give them any problems this year. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting because from what I could tell from the game, your defense is so dominant that Jaden Daniels woke up with back pain and couldn't even play. So you knocked him out just by reputation, which is, where Texas needs to be. The thing that I'm starting to see about Texas, and I don't know if it's a trend or I think it is something Sark needs to address, is you kind of toy with teams for the first half of football. And so far, you really haven't played anybody outside of Alabama that would make you pay for that. Kansas kept it close. Wyoming kept it close. I think Rice kept it their version of close. What I would want to see if I think Texas is taking that next step is to come out and dominate this next week against Oklahoma and have a good start to a football game rather than let's just stay within a possession or two of this opponent that we out-talent and we outmatch, and we should be out-scheming and out-coaching, and hope that we kick it in the second half. That to me is where Sark and his staff and that team takes that next step. Because honestly, the rest of the schedule, there's not much. So you've got this test, and then you should be realistically
this test again because Big 12.
Right, but you should be realistically going into the Big 12 championship game one way or the other, either 1 seed or the 2 seed after this weekend. But I'd like you to put some things in Oklahoma's mind about why even show up in Arlington on December 3rd.
I think what I would address for those two things, one, I'll take it better than last year because last year they were fast starters and no playing in the second half. So I will take that. I also noticed in Kansas, they seem hell-bent on, and I'm glad they are, but on establishing the run. They really are trying to figure out who that running back's going to be, and just in some ways, for the first quarter at least, they're trying to play 3 yard in a cloud of dust football, and I don't know if it's just seriously trying to fix something or work on something. But yeah, while I definitely agree with your assessment, it's better than last year, where they would have big leads at halftime and then lose by 3 points because they couldn't score again.
And it's not like you've gotten into a situation where you've fallen behind in the first half and then had to spend the second half, catching back up. So the faster start, I get where Andy's coming from on that, but really, I'm with you, Jim. I'd rather finish a lot stronger and start. I think they start steady.
I don't think that
start fast, Andy, but I think they start steady. And the defense does start fast.
But those things aren't mutually exclusive, right? I'm not saying start fast and then tail off at the end of the game.
Right.
That's what you should be doing, Jim. Just coast through the fourth quarter.
No, but there's not a lot of teams that can do it for 60 minutes. There's really not. That can maintain that momentum.
If we're talking about where Jim and the Texas Longhorn Nation wants to be and be a perennial top 5 football program, that is what you do. You start out strong, you finish strong, and you beat the shit out of teams in the middle of those games. And that's what I'm saying is Texas has had a very impressive season to this point. They need to take that next step. And I think Sark would agree with me. They're playing themselves at this point. They're not really playing opponents because outside of Oklahoma, I mean, this is kind of a shit bag. Maybe Kansas State wakes up again, but the rest of the schedule here is U of H, BYU, sorry, Arkansas, Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech. I don't think any of those teams are ranked, and none of those teams probably will be ranked by the end of the year. So it's where you'd want to see that team is coming out and dominating and playing to the best of their ability, regardless who the opponent is, because when they make a playoff, and it looks like they're going to make the playoff this year, it's a big step up in competition.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree.
So yeah, I get your point that it's, better than last year because you lost 5 games last year.
Yeah.
But just if I'm looking at it as an outsider, and I'm not rooting for this, by the way, that's not my job. Also, Jim, what time is it?
It is 7:57, and I've heard that OU still in fact sucks.
Told you.
We're not going to let, if you're running late for a meeting, you're going to find out through this
We'll
show.
know what time it is today, and you will know how things are going in Norman as well and how they're doing. No, I think also though, Andy, I look around at the landscape, and I've only seen one team this year that's done exactly what you're talking about, and that's Michigan. I mean, I don't see another team that been able to dominate for 4 quarters and started fast and kept it going. I just don't see the domination out of the Georgias or Alabamas or USC's or Notre Dame or any of them. The only team I have seen is Michigan, and the only other team I've seen coming close to that and how they're performing is Texas.
Well, and I think it's the parity that we've talked about this year. You're seeing more of that. You have less line depth on teams and less teams that spend time together because of the transfer portal. So you've got parity coming up. I think my point is, again, Texas could be one of those teams, and maybe it's only 2 teams this year. I'm still willing to give Georgia the benefit of the doubt because frankly, I think they're bored. I think you win 2 national championships in a row, and it's kind of we know we can turn this on. It's a dangerous game to play, but if you look at a roster that's built to win playoff games, that's Georgia. But I think Texas is right there.
I won't make another baseball comparison because it's been frustrating, but yes. No, it is interesting. And I have a feeling that you won't see the same problem with OU this weekend because as we've discussed, Andy, you've been to this game, right? It's different. And so I have a feeling, you won't see the same lethargy out of this team. And I know we're going to get to this week. I worry about it next week. Because of the hangover this game can be.
Hangover game, depending on how this week goes. Yep. No,
yeah, one of the things that Mac was always really good about it was win or lose, he won after OU. Whether they won it or lost it, he always won the next game because he was really good at keeping that focus. So,
who is your next week opponent after Oklahoma?
The University of Houston.
Oh, we're gonna go play University.
Well, I mean, you have a bye. You get to rest, and then you get
to beat off. You get to have the off. You get to beat off.
Well, Jessica's going out of town Sunday, so yes, that will probably happen.
All right, so this. Okay, Andy, I've waited 15 minutes. It's a 35-minute show at the most.
Hold on.
I kind of feel bad.
All right, I was exchanging emails with Dan Enos, so just give me.
Yeah. No, while he was doing that, I think A&M has just scored again.
A lot more option plays next week.
No, it's actually Arkansas just recovered another turnover and did nothing with it. No, so let's Arkansas recovered 2 fumbles. Arkansas had a pick 6. Arkansas also had a quarterback that didn't top 100 yards passing until the last play of the 4th quarter. Texas A&M beats an Arkansas team. Seriously, we forced turnovers. We pressured the quarterback. We kept you uncomfortable. You still beat us by 12. Yeah. We allowed a punt return touchdown. We did our own pick 6. We gave it right back to you. I will say, I thought Arkansas's defense actually played really well. The defense itself gave up 20 points. The problem is the other parts of the team gave up another 14, and the offense didn't score any. Andy, what's your take on the A&M win? How do you guys feel about it? Because we here in Arkansas are getting really sick of our offensive line shooting ourselves in the foot.
So I am of the opinion that A&M left probably about 14 to 21 points on the field.
Yeah.
The officials helped out with that some because, there was a touchdown that happened twice at the end of the game that they just didn't want to call. And
That didn't happen. It didn't. Well, why are you trying to punch it in from the 1
well,
yard?
here's my
When
issue.
you're up by 12,
Jim,
too.
I
This
know
is
you
Bobby
love hearing
Petrino
about.
trying to be an asshole.
I know you could. Yes,
This is
because
me on
that's what
the
he's doing.
podcast version pointing and agreeing with Scott.
because style points matter in college football in 2023. They
Not in
do.
the SEC. No, it doesn't. Not in the SEC West.
It does when you are an unranked team and you still get 31 points at being
You might make the BCS,
Oh,
Scott. Be careful.
let me ask
if
how
you
much that
have-
6 points matter. Are you ranked this week?
No, that's my point.
And 6
If
more
we had
points is
scored,
going to do it?
if we had scored 41 points versus 34 points, we would be.
Look, I am normally. I will tell people that you are one of the most intelligent,
No, it's
grounded,
look.
correct individuals I know most in my life.
I am out of my mind about how bad the
over,
SEC
2 and
officials
3
were in this
team.
game. Arkansas is the most penalized team in football.
Not that
and
week.
had 0
No
calls
penalties,
against
baby.
them. That's virtually impossible.
I feel
I
like
know.
it's like to be like.
I'm
a
not saying the
divorce-
officials were great. I'm saying
Can I just weigh in on this for a second? I feel like what it's like to be a divorced kid, and they think I've gone to bed, and then they're just arguing in the kitchen, and now I'm talking to a serious, like maybe a demon that's going to invade me because I'm emotionally weak.
No, I think, look, A&M won the game. There's no doubt about this. A&M won the game. But that last series, seriously, when it is 1st and goal from inside the 5 and you have less than 2 minutes, we have no timeouts, and you're calling timeouts so you can try to punch it in, and we still stop you from going across the goal line, official or not. The official blew the whistle. It was not a touchdown. So you can cry all you want, but it wasn't a touchdown. It wasn't going to make any difference. Period. You beat us.
Let's go ahead.
We're not that good.
Let's go ahead and take that away. And was it a kickoff return that was dropped and recovered by A&M, but just given back to Isaiah Centenga because reasons?
Yeah, so I don't understand that one. I can't understand.
But that's exactly okay.
But there's pass interference calls that also occurred in the game that were obvious against that happened that that your team committed that didn't happen to us, and I'm not going to say anything about that.
But I will, because the SEC officials were horrible.
They're always horrible.
But they were especially horrible this week.
But I think, look,
and I think it was a detriment to what should have been a good game. My issue is, and I shouldn't have gotten down this rabbit hole with the officials. The officials suck in the SEC. They do. My issue with A&M is we still didn't perform to the level of our capability, which means we left 2 touchdowns on the field. We should have scored more. We should have beat you more. We shouldn't have opened up with a stupid fucking screen pass at the beginning of the 3rd quarter and not blocked the goddamn DB who walked in the end zone. That's just boneheaded bullshit that we continue to do.
But we felt terrible about it, so we returned the favor on the exact same type of play not long thereafter. Because
I'll take a defensive tip pass because that looked like effort. This was just Max Johnson going, "Who's open?" The DB. Here you go.
That's fair. Yeah, he wasn't there. No, I will. How do you feel the team performed? Because that was the big story, right? Connor Wegman was out. Max Johnson steps in. First of all, I don't want to hear any more about KJ Jefferson being in the league or in NCAA for like a decade or however long he's been there. Max Johnson is like a 24-year-old redshirt sophomore, and that's not a lie. So, I mean, I hope he's figured out the offense by now because he's got gray in his beard. But how do you feel like it performed under Max Johnson over Connor Wegman? I thought it ran really well.
He and his brother are still sophomores.
Redshirt sophomore.
I'd like to interrupt this argument to point out that it's 8:06 and OU still sucks.
Johnson was fine. I didn't anticipate there being a big drop off, but we have the same problems that we had with Connor Wegman is that teams turn up pressure. And I don't know why it took your defensive coordinator the entire first half to realize that maybe if we blitz, he can't complete passes. Because that's what happened in the second half. But then we figured out, hey, they can't stop the run anymore. So let's do that.
That's why we didn't do
I mean, it's a little bit of I get it, but your only hope of winning that game is to make Max Johnson turn the ball over more than 2 times, evidently.
Huh. We have to not give it back. No, I will say this. I thought Max Johnson is a really good fit for a Bobby Petrino offense, and I hadn't thought even contemplated that before because I thought Wegman was your guy. Losing Wegman for the year, I don't think you have that far of a drop off. That was Johnson's first game, and he for a first game in that offense, and you almost hung 40.
I actually thought that in the game he got injured, where the offense was stagnant, and then he came in, and all of a sudden they were throwing the ball down the field. I don't know if that's play calling or what, but I felt that from the game Wegman got injured, that they looked better offensively.
Well, and to your point, Jim, it's not like Johnson's an 18-year-old kid who was playing in high school last year. You know, I mean, he is older. He should be able to step in and adapt. And it looks like he's doing what he should be able to do. But Andy, what are your thoughts? It's your team.
Well, I think Max Johnson is a better backup situation than most teams in college football have in 2023, because a talented quarterback will go somewhere else to play football. Max Johnson, for a lot of reasons, is willing to be at A&M and potentially sit on the bench because the writing was kind of on the wall that Wegman was going to be the starter. He had his opportunities to transfer again. He would have had to sit out a year. He chose to stay. His brother plays there. It's close to home. I mean, there's a bunch of factors, kind of things that he enjoyed.
Oh, the tight end, his brother, that they kept pointing out like 20 times on the broadcast that their brother.
Look, if you have to sit through a decade of Colt McCoy and his fishing buddy and their bass boat, I'm willing to make y'all sit through one season of brother throwing to brother.
It's they were roommates though, for real. And then their dads were roommates before that.
So yeah, that right there. Nobody else in the country gives a shit about it.
Hey, I'm telling you what, after the first time I heard it, I didn't give a shit anymore. Like,
but Brent Musburger, my God, he must have walked
all
around
the time they were doing it, like,
the entire time that Mac Brown was on the sidelines. No, Max Johnson, back to that topic. He's a good quarterback. He is not a great quarterback. He has flaws. I think the difference for our offense with him in is that he's going to run the plays he can run perhaps with less risk than Connor Wegman would have taken, but Connor Wegman had a bigger book open to him. So if you have 100 plays in your book, we probably have 70 plays in our book now, which isn't a bad loss for a backup quarterback, but there's some things we just can't do as well as we could do with Connor Wegman in the game. There's some things we can probably do better with Max Johnson in the game because Petrino can narrow down his scope.
And not only that, though, but his father won a Super Bowl with the same strategy of times.
And what is with Brad Johnson's arms? That guy is jacked.
I think
he's more jacked than he was then. Like,
yes.
If he was as jacked up then as he is now, he might have been able to throw the ball a little bit farther.
But to me,
Super Bowl champion Brad Johnson.
It's Chris Sims, Major Applewhite kind of energy, where if you go onto the practice field, Chris Sims is a way better quarterback. But sometimes you've got maybe those limitations actually provide other opportunities because you're not trying all the other. You're focused on what your game plan is. I don't know. I just felt like there was a spark when he came in, and just as an observer,
I don't agree that Wegman is a practice warrior, which was Sims's reputation by the end. I think that Wegman is truly a 19-year-old kid learning how to play against SEC defenses, and as bad as Auburn is as a team, when you watched him be stagnant, they don't have a bad defense, and they're able to mess with him a little bit. So that Wegman is more of a learning curve guy. Max Johnson, to Scott's point, has played at LSU for a season and a half. He started most of one of those seasons, transferred last year, started 4 games or 3 games for us. And this is his 4th year of being in college football as a redshirt sophomore. Thank you, COVID. So you're seeing a guy that's a little bit more in possession of, even if it's more limited, what he can do. And so he can be more effective quicker, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't know his reputation. I just meant.
No, he's uber talented. He just has a lot of learning to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this too. Bobby Petrino is an old school offensive coordinator. So the standard pocket quarterback, he's fine with that. He can manage that, but he also,
Ryan Mallett. Johnson. I mean, he made Ryan Mallett an All-American.
Well, right. Ryan Mallett and Tyler Wilson looked incredible here, and then he also took his talents on the road to Louisville and coached Lamar Jackson. So he can go either way in that regard. What I do think would be really interesting, guys, wouldn't you love to sit in on a conversation that you're listening to Bobby Petrino have with Max Johnson, and Brad Johnson is sitting in on that conversation? The football IQ in that room would be insane. That'd be fun to listen into.
They could get Warren Sapp there too. That'd be neat.
What was that? What?
They get Warren Sapp there too. That'd be neat.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah.
Be a different perspective for sure.
So what's wrong with Arkansas? Let me ask that, because I think you guys will be able to answer this question. But after watching that game, I'm interested in your opinions on my team. Obviously, we're not having the year I thought we were going to have. That's gone. Bowl eligibility is something that may or may not be in the grass. Andy, you already touched on our delusional fan base is getting delusional again. What are your thoughts? What's going on here?
I mean, if I'm starting, I think it begins and ends with your offensive line. Your KJ Jefferson is a extremely talented quarterback, but he doesn't have time to throw the ball. And he's gotten in a habit, from what I could see, especially in that second half against A&M, of looking at the ground instead of looking to the field. When you got a quarterback get their eyes down, they're done. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have time to think. I don't even know if it's a play calling thing. It's just you can't establish the run because your offensive line isn't run blocking really well. So you're putting all your pressure on KJ Jefferson, and teams are just pinning their ears back and going after him. A&M was able to, and they haven't really been able to do this, at least the first part of the season. We've turned some things on, but they were able to get to him with 4 guys a lot. That's problematic because that makes it really hard to complete passes if you're dropping 7. That to me, you've got defensive issues, but everybody has defensive issues. You've got, maybe you don't have the best wide receivers in football, but you don't need them if your quarterback has time to get them the ball and see the field. It, to me, is just, it begins and ends with the offensive line not being what you guys expected it to be.
Yeah, I agree. And those receivers, I mean, they're 6'4", 6'4", 6'5", 6'7". Throw the freaking ball to them if you have time. Jim, what about you?
Well,
same stuff?
Just to echo what Andy said, I think he's right. And I think he mentioned earlier in the show about this becoming sort of a problem. Like, if there's going to be parity in college football, this is how, by the offense, by the line play. The skill position talent isn't in question. But it does feel like every year it's going to be movable offensive lines. It's going to be completely different units that not only you're dealing with transfer portal, but as we've discussed on the show, less and less time to practice with them. I think every year could be a real crapshoot for how anybody predicts their team is going to be until the team starts, to see how actually those offensive lines play against actual competition. I think that's as simple as it's so funny how football doesn't change, right? It's line play and can you establish the run? I don't care if it was John Madden, doing his thing, but
exactly right.
Rest in peace. But yeah, I really think that's it, man.
Yeah, if you can't block and tackle, you can't do much. Oh, shoot. Hey, Jim, what time is it?
Well, I got 8:14, and I'm getting something from our producers. Breaking news: OU still sucks.
Okay, all right. I was just making sure. And it's 8:15, and I think the same still applies.
Oh, 8:15 is still happening. Also, Trump has been yes.
91 times.
Please don't get me started. You gag order and you go out and have a press conference. Attaboy. Whatever. But
he thought gag order meant he thought it meant it was like he can't do any more Trevor Bauer stuff, but turns out
I thought it had something to do with Stormy Daniels when he heard the gag order.
Or McDonald's. I don't know.
I will say this. I think you guys
Grip is coming back.
I think you guys are spot on about Arkansas's problems. This week they have been shuffling 10 guys around, trying to find the correct offensive line in practice. So that obviously tells you there's a problem. The other thing, I do think that KJ Jefferson is not adjusting very well to the new offense. He looks slow in decision-making and getting off of his checks. And I think those two things combined, less time to throw and you need more time to process the offense. That's a terrible, terrible, terrible combination.
You guys think that with there's got to be some give and take. And I know that we talked about hopefully they come up with a way to kind of regulate the transfer portal a little bit, but don't you think that they have to somehow lobby for more practice time? I mean, can they do that? It just feels like we're getting a lesser product as a result of all of these factors coming together. And maybe lesser equals more exciting, but I don't necessarily know that's the case.
Andy, what are your thoughts there? Because I don't know if they can. And my first thought is they're reducing 2-a-days and trying to reduce practice time all over the place. It looks like I don't know if they can get kids to come out for more practice. We talking about practice?
Well, kids hate practice. Kids love scrimmaging. So you just call it a scrimmage and you make that happen. I think the bigger issue,
Voluntary.
That's true.
You tell them you're playing 11-on-11 scrimmage. We'll just see what happens. I don't know that you put the genie back in the bottle. And I think that the NCAA and even the colleges that don't love the NCAA or their membership in such are scared to death of the players unionizing. And so anything that's going to take away from their free time or their ability to move, their ability to earn, is going to be one step towards that piece. Now, I think there's some, and this is a topic for a different show since we have 13 minutes left and somebody still sucks somewhere in Norman.
I thought you meant in Fayetteville. Like, yeah, we suck too. Okay.
I wouldn't say that, Scott.
I did.
I also don't think that's the case.
I also think A&M has a good defense.
I think Arkansas finishes strong. I still think a bowl game is in your future. Look at me being nice.
I will tell you guys now how Arkansas season is going to wind up at this point. We're going to be 5-7. We will find a way to beat Auburn in Fayetteville. We will beat FIU or FAU or whoever we have from
2
Florida.
right there.
That's 2. We'll pick up a win against Mississippi State. That gets us to 5. We will be ahead of Missouri by 2 with 2 seconds remaining, and they will hit a 58-yard field goal, and we will not go to a bowl. And I'm telling you that's going to happen because that's kind of usually how it works out.
At this point, I'd give you Florida too, and probably Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, yes. Florida at Florida is a different team than Florida on the road.
But
Very much so.
They'll have
Hey,
quit
guys,
by November 4th.
But let's take a look at the week that is upcoming. Jim, you're the big story. Oh, what time is it?
Oh, it is 8:18. A time for me to break down OU, who still sucks. Okay, so if I put on my like non nervous sports fan thing, I'm fully expecting a pretty crappy sports weekend as it goes. Not only can I not really watch because I'm actually going to be teaching at the University of Texas part of the weekend. I'm pretty excited about that. But if I'm honest, OU has dominated but looked shaky in all of those games. I also feel like they've not really played anybody. And I don't know that it seems like Sark has done a pretty good job of keeping this team to be pretty level-headed. There's a bit of a hangover post Alabama that they worked through. Although this game is different. It's funny, Andy, they always talk about how this game is different, but there's not always a lot of upsets in this game. They make a big deal about that, but then you look, and generally speaking, the team higher ranked generally does win this game. It's not really one of those throw the records out and here's what's going to happen type of ball games. I think it'll be a gritty, hard fought game. I think Texas by 10.
Andy?
I think you can throw the records out. They don't matter in this kind of game. No, I'm kidding.
The records out as the 2 rivals meet on the field of the Cotton Bowl.
Frozen tundra of Cotton Bowl State.
This year's edition of the. No, go ahead.
I think Oklahoma's a little bit of fool's gold so far this year. To Jim's point, they haven't really played anybody. They're, for whatever reason, not satisfied with their starting quarterback, and they keep looking for reasons to.
We can't get Spencer Rattler back.
The streak is broken, Jim. I appreciate the effort, but the streak died.
8:20, I made a Spencer Rattler reference, and you still sucks. And so does Spencer Rattler. Sorry. I know we're off the rails today. My bad.
Deion Sanders is the new Spencer Rattler, sir.
Right.
About him until now. Way to go. You saved us.
I expect Texas to win.
Spencer, just say them all.
I expect Texas to win. I expect Texas to win going away. I just don't think Oklahoma stays with them. I don't think Venables and Sark is a good matchup from an offense-defense standpoint. I just don't think Oklahoma has the talent to stay with you guys. And this is not me being the Aggie apologist. It just Texas has a team that should win this game, and honestly, all the rest of their games that are Big 12 competition. So I don't see even a lot of drama in this game. Now, yours gets hurt somehow, that's a different story. But right now, there's too much on the Texas side for this game for me to think it's going to be anything but Texas by probably 3 possessions.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Oklahoma, I mean, the scores are dominant, but they haven't played a team with a winning record. No one's going to brag about beating Tulsa and Arkansas State. I think that Oklahoma has the propensity to be able to score a lot of points, but whenever they've had a semi-real defense in front of them, that was shown with SMU and Cincinnati, they've struggled at times. What I'm really interested about is how hot Brent Venables' seat really feels. It's his second year, right? He's new. He's really new to this rivalry. And first 5 weeks of the season, he's got to be flying high because he's killing everybody. And now it just got real this week. So I'm really interested in how this week. I would have loved to walk in Brent Venables' shoes or been nearby this week just to hear people in the street, you're going to get him this time, right? You're going to, just the added pressure that he's got to be feeling. We'll see how he handles it. I think Texas wins a nail biter. I think it's going to be a very close game.
I think if Venables loses this game, I think he's gone, because you got to go into the SEC with something, and going in limping along isn't it. And I really think that, yeah.
Well, I for one appreciate a lame duck Brent Venables going to the SEC, because it makes A&M's job in recruiting a lot easier.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, historically, if you look in our region, Texas, OU, and A&M, not all 3 of those teams have ever been good at the same time. There's usually enough top level talent for 2 of those teams to be good, but not 3. So I'm perfectly fine taking recruits from OU, and we've been doing that for a couple of years now.
Well, I know that's a conversation for the off season, but we all I think know how OU is going to do in the SEC. But yeah,
it should be difficult. Andy, this week you have a matchup that normally would have you biting your fingernails, your toenails, kicking the neighbor's pet just because you don't want to kick your own. But Alabama's not that invincible this year. You're going to Bama. How you feeling?
They're coming to Kyle Field.
They're coming to you, rather. Yeah, how you feeling?
What week is this? We're 4-1, so I'm going to give you the same answer I've given every week. I have no idea what team is going to show up. I have no idea how we're going to play. I literally don't. I can look on paper. I can look at all the data and say that A&M should win this game. It should be close, but A&M should win this game because the things we do well, Alabama doesn't do well. And the things Alabama does well offensively, we match up pretty well with defensively. This was a tight game last year in Tuscaloosa with a backup quarterback. This is the 3rd year in a row we're playing Alabama with our backup quarterback. We're 1-1. You add to that Jimbo Fisher always pulls out an incredible scheme when he's facing Nick Saban teams. Now, why he doesn't do that for any other team on the schedule, I have no idea, but that's part of why we have Bobby Petrino now.
But I will say from Bobby
it's a mystery.
Time at Arkansas, Bobby Petrino holds Alabama in a special place, and beating Nick Saban is a huge goal of his.
But even on the downside, Nick Saban is Nick Saban, and that team is still very talented, and they could turn it on and throw 50 points on the board through special teams and defensive scores and a little bit of offense they get without anybody blinking at it. I still think Alabama is one of the top 10 teams and top 10 programs this year, even with the little bit of struggle they've had. And I just don't know what we're going to get. I expect a low-scoring game, which means it'll probably be 2 teams scoring in the 30s because my expectations are out the damn window. I am just happy that the Astros will be playing most of the same time, so I have something else to distract myself because I can't get a good feeling on what's going to happen.
Boy, what do you do? What are you going to? You need to distract yourself from both games. Are you in crazy?
Am I in crazy?
I mean. I have A&M by 3 because it's at home, and I have Arkansas by 10. I don't think you lose twice in a row.
We've done it 3 times in a row so far. I think one more week.
I'm sorry, but I think you get off the deck.
Yeah. Arkansas goes to Ole Miss this weekend. Lane Kiffin. So crazy things happen when Arkansas goes to Ole Miss, right? That's the site of the 4th and 25. Hunter Henry pitch back to Alex Collins, run 40 yards for the first down, get just a crazy win over Ole Miss. Probably my favorite Arkansas win ever. I would love to see another one, but I don't see it, guys. I just don't. I don't. I think this is going to be a week filled of Jackson Dart taking the snap and Lane Kiffin throwing the clipboard up in both hands because he knows a touchdown's coming. I think it's going to be a long week.
I think that Ole Miss isn't going to score 55 points because Arkansas plays better defense. Whatever holes you think they have better defense than LSU, who is playing no defense right now. It was an entertaining football game last week. We probably could have talked about it a little bit, but that was two teams just Olay, let's see who gets the ball next. And Arkansas will put up a fight. And I don't expect, because the last time Ole Miss played a team that put up a fight, they scored 10 points.
Yeah. So I will say this. I know we're going to lose. I'm going to be in Mississippi this weekend. So I'm going to be in the heart of their country when we play. So I know we're going to lose. Okay, it's that simple. And look,
are you going into Oxford?
If I am one of those. So look, our Arkansas fans are delusional, right? We fly banners. To your point earlier, Andy, that we hadn't really gotten into. Arkansas fans are emailing Dan Enos with complaints and telling him to run the damn ball on 4th and 1. Which, hey, by the way, Dan Enos, if it's 4th and 1, you have KJ Jefferson, run the damn ball. I don't have to send him an email to tell him that. And if he has to be sent an email from a fan to know that. He's 6'4", 260 pounds. Oh, I have an idea. Let's line him up 6 yards behind center and hand it off. Anyway, I'll be in Mississippi this weekend for the Sanderson Farms PGA Championship. That'll be a blast in Jackson. But Arkansas will lose in Oxford because I'll be in the belly of the beast, and that way it'll be most painful. All right, that is Jim Christopher, Texas.
828. You still
A&M. I'm Scott McIntyre for Arkansas. This has been this week's edition of Y'all Fight Sooie. Join us next week when I'm sure I'll be depressed and maybe one of them will be, or they'll both be happy, and I'll be around here on Suicide Watch. So take care till then.